Today we're going to have a look at how we would finish our little trays before we move on to the assembly, which we would really need to do before we try and assemble the product, because we obviously don't want to get the finish on the hinges that we're going to use, so we get a nice clean finish on the metal and on the wood. There's a few things that we need to do when we're preparing surfaces for finishing. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to have to sand back the material so that the MDF base is completely flush with the carcasses, and as well as that we're going to work up the grits to make sure that we've got a really smooth surface there ready for the varnish. When you're deciding on which abrasive material it is that you want to use, a good abrasive for softwoods and for hardwoods as well actually would be this aluminium oxide paper. It's useful for this type of job because it doesn't clog like other abrasives. So I will use 3 grits of abrasive paper. Here you can see that I've got P60, P120 and P240, and I would also use those with just a sanding block or any other scrap bit of material that you can get your hands on. Okay. So what I would do is I would start off with the lowest grit, P60, and that's going to remove any pencil, any glue that's left over from the assemblies here. So sanding the sides, obviously sanding with the grain, okay, otherwise you'll scratch the surface if you work against the grain. So I'll be working my way around that box, all 4 sides, and removing any other pencil imperfections, things with the P60. That is the roughest paper, and it does tend to leave scratches on the surface, but we'll then go back and remove those scratches with the P120. So just repeat that process basically, working your way up the grits. You'll see there that will get slightly smoother as we go up the grits, but it's important that you get all these surfaces rubbed down with the P120. And as you're aware, we'll move up to the P240 next, and we'll just repeat that process. And you can see there that you do get quite a lot of dust still from the P240. You'll also get a really smooth finish, pleasant to touch, which is really what we're looking for with a decorative box like what we're creating here. Okay, so that's me worked down all the surfaces with the abrasive paper, with the aluminium oxide paper. We'll just stick that to one side for 1 second, and what I really want to do now is try and remove as much of the dust from the surfaces as I can. You can get a brush, you can get a bit of tissue paper. You want to try and remove as much of this dust, and then you can see what it is that you're working with. Okay, so that's the dust removed. The next thing that I'm going to want to do to prepare this surface is I'm going to want to raise the grain. The reason that we raise the grain is just because when we apply any surface finish, for example varnish, the grain will stand up on end and it'll feel a bit rough again. So what we're going to do is we're going to raise the grain before we apply our finish. So I'm going to do that just with a damp cloth or a damp bit of tissue paper. Doesn't need to be drenched, doesn't need to be absolutely soaking, just enough just to get those fibres standing up on end. Okay, so you can see there that's a little bit darker in colour. Just enough just to make those fibres stand up. Then what you would do is you would just leave that to dry. You can feel there, you'll not be able to see it, but you can certainly feel there that that is a little bit rougher to the touch already. Okay, so that's what you would do, just raise the grain with a damp cloth. Here's one that I done a wee bit earlier. It's a wee bit rough again. So what I would do at this stage is I would just go back, get my aluminium oxide paper, sanding block, and I'm just going to cut back these surfaces just to get that as smooth as possible, ready for the application of my varnish. Okay, so I'll just work my way around those 4 surfaces, and once I've done that I'll be ready to move on and start thinking about the varnish finish that I'm going to apply next. Okay, so that's that. What I'd be tempted to do now is I'd be tempted to wipe down my work area. It's always important to have clean space to work whenever you're applying any finish, which I'm just going to demonstrate for you just now. Okay, so a couple of things when applying a varnish finish. Obviously you want a clean brush to work with, and as well as that, try and get a good quality brush, because good quality brushes tend not to lose as many of their bristles as the cheaper options. And obviously you don't want bristles sticking to your work after you've applied your finish. So I've got a clean brush here. You can see there that there's no any residue left over from previous varnishing or paint in the bristles there, so I'm quite happy with the quality and the state that this brush is in, so I'm just going to go ahead and start thinking about applying my finish. So here I've got some quick drying polyurethane varnish. Should be able to get 1 coat done and then leave that to dry. Should take about an hour or so to dry completely, and then I can inspect that finish and decide whether or not I'm going to need to put any more on top. Okay, so first coat, I'm going to apply a nice coat here using this quick drying polyurethane. Now when I'm about to apply the varnish, I'm just going to dip the bottom 5mm or so, the tip of the brush, into the varnish, and then I'm going to rinse away the excess. I don't want to apply too much varnish in one go, and you'll notice when you put that on there you really drastically change the colour of the MDF, and the pine will get slightly darker. But what you're looking to achieve here is a flat, thin, even coat of varnish over the material. What you don't want to see are any runs, splashes or drips accumulating on the surfaces, which will spoil the finish. So you want to move that varnish all the way around, and again you might need to constantly get a wee bit more varnish on your brush there, just so that you can see what you're applying. Just be careful, sometimes there are bits of hardened varnish sitting in the jar because it's been sitting out, or the lid's been left off. So you want to try and just look quite closely at what you're actually applying to the surface of the material. Okay, now let me just show you what we don't want to see here, and that's lots of varnish on a loaded brush, and then when you apply it you get pools and drips and runs accumulating on the surface. That's not the finish that we're looking to achieve. If you do that, however, by accident, what you can do is you can just rinse off the varnish from the brush, and you're just going to try and move that around as best you can, just so that there's not too much on one surface. Remember, we're trying to achieve a thin, even coat, and we'll build up our shine through applying more than one coat, but certainly don't want to put too much on in any one coat, otherwise you'll get an uneven finish. Now, as I said, this is quick drying polyurethane varnish that we're using for finishing these boxes. So once I had applied my even coat, I should be able to leave that, and I should be able to come back and apply a top coat or a second coat, depending on how many coats you wanted to apply after it was touch dry. So maybe no longer than 1 hour. Okay, you really do want to spend a bit of time making sure that you've got a flat, even coat everywhere. No pools accumulating, no runs, no splashes. Okay. So after 1 or 2 coats, maybe even 3 coats if you've got time, we would start to just inspect the finish and just judge for ourselves whether or not we were ready to start thinking about the assembly of the tops, which we're going to get hinged on in the next video. Okay, thank you.